Welcome everybody, thanks for checking in today. Fred van Urk here, the founder of VIP Property Club, also a licensed mortgage broker and a licensed real estate agent. Really delighted to have with me today Garreth Clavijo from Empower Money, and we're going to talk a little bit about zero deposit loans, how they actually exist. So welcome Garreth, thanks for coming along.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Fred. I'm really excited to get into it.
Look, before we start, I have got this silly disclaimer that I've got to read. Just says any information provided today is general by nature. It's not financial or credit advice, nor is it an offer for credit. Before making any purchase decision, you should contact your accountant, financial planner, or other professional representative. So Garreth, tell me a little bit about yourself and what this zero deposit, or what you call it, is all about.
I run as a business development manager.
Yep.
Part of a company which has been able to construct a zero deposit home loan.
Okay.
So I find myself quite fortunate that I've been able to be a part of essentially building up the ability to be able to offer this to potential clients or people who are looking to get into the property market.
Yeah, sure. Do you find a lot of hesitation or confusion around this zero deposit? I mean, it just doesn't really make any sense, right?
Yeah,
it's like everybody says you've got to save 10%, 20%, just the normal deposit. You know.
Yeah, naturally we do get a lot of hesitation and skepticism because we've been all raised to believe that the big banks won't help you unless you bring some sort of chunk of cash to the table, right? And that's, I guess, why I feel so fortunate to be able to offer people a solution to get around that huge hurdle.
Sure.
Because it is a huge hurdle. It's possibly the biggest hurdle which prevents people, especially in Sydney, from getting into the property market. Yeah,
look, I guess part of maybe the misconception is, I mean, you're going to borrow 80% from the bank anyhow, right? Or depending on your circumstance, you might borrow 90%, or even, you might be a first home buyer, you might be eligible up to 95%, right? So effectively, you're borrowing the majority of it anyhow, right?
Yeah.
It's just when you say zero, like 100% loan, it just sounds a bit kind of too good to be true, I guess.
Yeah, and that is kind of a lot of the feedback we get. Not feedback, I should say, reactions we get to when you say we can get you a property without any deposit whatsoever.
Yeah.
It's almost too good to be true because it's so ingrained in us.
Yeah.
That we need a deposit.
That's true. Look, mate, it's I've been looking at some of the stats, and as you probably know, the median house price in Sydney right now is actually sitting at 1.471,000. Right.
I think I checked yesterday. It was like 1.3 yesterday.
Yeah. And I've got a graph here that I'll put up and show in a second. But it just in comparison, in the year 2000, when we had the Sydney Olympics, the median house price was 300,000. Right. So it's gone up exponentially. It's gone up 5 times. And historically, it's going up 7 to 8% every year.
Insanity, pure insanity.
Right, so it's just this. It's almost a runaway train, which is causing this affordability for people, and people basically not being able to save their deposit.
The affordability trap.
Yeah. So look, So I'll keep going on. That's the Sydney medium house price. You can see this graph.
Wow.
It's pretty much
I mean, yeah.
It says what it is, right?
It's a different feeling when you see the line.
Yeah. When you actually physically see it, it must make you feel quite sick if you're not actually on that ladder. Right?
Yeah, if you're not above that line.
If you're not in, you're out.
If you're catching it, trying to catch it anyway.
So I guess if you just go to the extreme, you start extrapolating that out. If it does keep increasing at this rate, which it is showing no signs of slowing down. Statistically, they say that by 2050, the median house price could be 7.5 million.
Jeez.
Right. So.
Yeah. Well, you definitely want to be in front of that train.
Yeah, you want to be in front of that train. So look, I've just got a slide here that I think we just run through because this kind of basically shows it, right? So, if you had the median house price at 1.47, you needed a 10% deposit, let's say. Most banks require 20, but let's just work it on 10. You'd need 147,100 Your LMI would be 39,700 lender's mortgage insurance. I'll come back and explain that in a second. Your stamp duty would be 63,600 with miscellaneous closing costs, a couple of grand. Even at 10%, you need $250,000.
Yeah.
Just to get in for a medium house, right?
Stats don't lie.
Yeah, stats don't lie. Stats don't lie. Let me just explain a little bit about the LMI. You obviously know what it is. So wherever you're in a situation where you're borrowing from the bank more than 80%, the bank on your behalf takes out what they call lender's mortgage insurance. And basically, it's a premium or a charge or a fee that you have to pay. It's not elective. You have to pay it if you're borrowing more than 80%. And the more that you borrow above 80%, the higher your LMI is, right? So in this situation, look, it was 40 grand just gone. So I did another one just out of curiosity. I said, look, let's say I had a 95% loan, right? I just put down 5%. And if you work through the numbers again, I'd still need 73,000. I'd still need 73 grand in deposit. My LMI has shot up to 71,000. Okay, so that's pretty massive, right? Yeah. My stamp duty's at 63, miscellaneous closing costs. So I still need over 200 grand, 210.
It's not much different to the 10%.
It's nothing, is it? So I guess the point here is that, it's if you're not in, you're out, right? Another interesting stat I read is they said that it takes, around 10 years for the average person to save for a deposit? Is that what you've heard?
Yes, yeah. So for that $200,000 mark, the average time to save for $200,000 is 10 years, yeah.
Yeah, okay. So if I'm saving 20 grand a year over 10 years, and the medium house price is going up at 7-8%, basically means it's going to double in 10 years.
Yeah.
So I'll need double my...
So the deposit you spent 10 years saving is now worth 50% of the deposit that you were saving for.
Yeah. So I'm out.
So you're never going to... It's an ever moving...
I'm not in.
Goal.
Yeah. Well, look, people starting out, they're not going to spend 1.4 million, right? I ran some numbers just on, let's say somebody was buying a house for $1 million, right? And on a 10% loan, 10% deposit with LMI and stamp, it was still coming out at around 166,000.
166,000 for a $1 million
for a $1 million property.
So really, you're still saving for 8 years to catch that.
Well, you're saving for 8 years, and then by the time you're at 8 years, you're 8 years behind.
Yeah.
Right. So plus you're not getting that appreciation in the property. Obviously, you're not getting the 7 to 8% uplift.
Yes.
Because you're waiting. Right. So you're basically always going to be behind.
So basically, what we can say is that if you're not in the property market, so you're on one side of the wall. You're either losing that 7 to 8% every year,
correct,
trying to save a deposit, or you're gaining 7 to 8% in equity or in capital gains or whatever you want to call it.
True. So whatever it cost me a little bit more up front, I actually make back. Time makes it back for me anyhow, right? Because I'm making 7-8% on my property, even though I put in 1/10 of that as a deposit if I was at 10%. If I was at zero deposit, then I'm making money on, well, anyhow, I won't even go into that, but we'll let's carry on, Sounds like doom and gloom. That's why we're chatting today. Other solutions out there for people. I just wanted to run through a couple of opportunities here just to show you some numbers. I know that you and I, we work with a certain builder. There's a certain builder here in Sydney that will actually offer these zero deposit loans. It's not common, right? They do build in the newer estates, right? So in the southwest corridor, the northwest corridor, all the way up through the Hunter. That's correct, right?
Correct, yeah.
Yeah. So look, I have this example here in Austral. Obviously a very high growth area out by Badgerys Creek in the southwest corridor. Done exceptionally well in the last 4 years. House prices probably there 4 years ago was 650. Now I think the medium house price is $1 million at 50.
Yeah, correct.
Right, so it's an emerging suburb where if you could get in now, you would do very well over time.
And you look at Leppington, which is next door to Austral.
True.
And how that's gone.
Yeah.
Austral's pretty much going to follow suit.
Yeah. So look, I've got this package here in Austral. Just thought I'd show it to our members and show them the comparison. Okay, it's $1 million. It's $1,010,000. The home's $390, and the land's $620. There's a chart that shows the growth in Austral. It's actually went up 19.8% in the last year alone.
Yeah.
Right. So it's definitely on the move. That stats from REA, so that's pretty reliable.
Yeah, nice.
Running through these numbers. Do you want to run through these numbers?
Yeah, sure. So just going based off what you have on the screen there, so we've got the package price obviously at $1,010,000, but with the zero deposit stuff, or the zero deposit product that we have, obviously your deposit figure is at zero.
Yeah. Okay.
LMI figure is also at zero because LMI is actually counted toward, or it's actually factored into the loan.
Yep.
So while it does say LMI is at zero, the lender actually lends out 5% on top of the property value, which serves the same purpose as LMI.
Sure.
It is a security risk that the purchaser is repaying off, but it's not an upfront cost.
Yep. So it's not coming out of my pocket.
It's not coming out of your pocket. It's not.
Well, it is eventually, but it's not coming out
of your
straight
pocket.
up.
It's not an upfront cost, which means it's not blocking you.
Yeah.
Right. It's not a roadblock.
Yep.
It's a fair thing to account for when you're looking at, like we looked at before, the 5% and the 10% deposits. They both have LMI.
Where I needed 250 grand.
Naturally, just to help people understand, when you get to such a high loan amount or high LVR, naturally the lender has to mitigate that risk.
Sure.
The higher the loan amount, the more risk there is to the lender. And a lot of people believe, like we had a conversation earlier before this podcast, remember? And they said, how risky is it? It's not risky at all, really. It doesn't change for the borrower. As long as they can make their repayments. It's the same as if they had 80% or 100%. The risk is on the lender.
Yeah.
The more that they're feeding out to you, the more risk there is to them. So that 5% on top of the 100 is actually a security fee. So as we continue on, we've got stamp duty.
Yep.
So that would be an upfront cost to the purchaser, which is in this instance, or for these types of cases, because the zero deposit is only applied to a newly built home, the stamp duty only gets applied to the land. Which is substantially significantly less. In this case, in this example, we've got $21,000.
Yeah, wow.
For stamp duty.
Yeah.
And then you've got miscellaneous closing and initial deposits, which you need to be able to pay off to secure land and to initiate the building, the tender and the drawings and stuff, which comes in at about $7,000. So all up, your upfront cost to get a property in Austral around the $1 million mark comes in at about $28,000.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's a lot better than my 200.
A little bit better.
166 grand or whatever it was before.
A little bit more achievable.
Yeah. Okay. Look, we've got a couple of other examples here I thought we'd just quickly show. This one in Box Hill, nice 2-story house on 250 square meters land. Box Hill again, an area that's gone up significantly in the last 5 years. You can see the average house price in Box Hill was around 500. Now it's at 1.29, up 4% in the last year. Quickly look at the numbers on this one. So we got a package price of 1.2, zero deposit, zero LMI, stamp duty 28K, miscellaneous closing 7. You could get into that property if you qualified for 35K.
Yes.
Is that real?
That's real.
Okay.
That's real.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, on that note,
you
did mention the words "if you qualify."
Yeah.
That would be, that's the operative part of that sentence there, right?
Sure.
It's not all...
I can't just rock up with my 35 grand and be on the dole and get into this property.
It's not all birds and bees.
Yeah, okay. Well, we've got a little bit here that we can talk about later about the qualification.
Yep. Excellent.
I mean, I guess, obviously, at the end of the day, you're still borrowing that money from the lender. You have to be able to service it, right?
That's right.
Okay. Just one more here. So you might want to talk about this one.
Yep. So what have we got? We've got a...
one up in Huntley.
Yeah, so we've got a $720,000 house and land package in Huntley.
Yep. Where's Huntley?
So Huntley, for those people listening out there, is in Hunter region, Hunter Valley.
Yeah.
Specifically North Rothbury.
Okay.
huge expanses there, infrastructure being built. As we know, Newcastle is building up as well. Newcastle's only about 20 to half an hour drive from Huntley. So really it's well within reach for a lot of people who can base themselves from Newcastle.
Yep.
So we have seen a lot of investors as well as people moving out to those areas because it's much more affordable than Sydney. Of course, as you can see, it's a $720,000 price point. So you're coming into Huntley at $720 as opposed to Sydney, which starts at around the $1 million mark.
Yeah.
$950 $1 million mark.
Yeah. Well, I guess a foot in the door, right? I mean,
foot in the door.
You've got to start somewhere.
You've got to start somewhere, right? And it's a lot easier to move from there than it is to start, say, in Sydney.
Yeah, true.
So for Huntley, the lands start from around 300,000.
Yep.
Anywhere from 350,000 upwards.
Yeah.
So, your stamp duty, you're looking at, say...
I've got it here, mate. I'll help you out.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, I was going to say 7. So 9,000 for stamp duty, plus your $7,000 incidentals and miscellaneous.
16,000. Plus, I guess the benefit of this package is you're servicing your borrowings a lot. Well, it's less than the others, less than Austral, less than Box Hill. So obviously your mortgage repayments are more comfortable.
Yes.
Right.
Much more affordable, especially for those first home buyers.
Yeah, okay. Well, look, that sounds, obviously, once you start looking at those numbers, it's pretty gobsmacking, right? It's, So talk me to some of the mechanics about it. I know you spoke about this 105% lend. So basically, the lender lends you an extra 5%, which covers some of their risk fees. I know it sounds like a lot, but as we showed before, it's pretty much equivalent or similar to what you'd actually be paying in LMI and lender's mortgage insurance anyhow.
Correct. And when you actually take into account the loss of having to pay an extra 5% on a loan, and you weigh that up against the loss of waiting for a better opportunity, or waiting until you have a deposit, or waiting until you have enough so you don't have to pay LMI.
Yep.
The loss that you incur through waiting is higher than if you had just...
Well, this is the whole point, right? If it goes up 7% and I'm paying let's just call it a 5% premium, okay? Even though it's not. If I paid 5% more, but it went up 7%, then by the end of the year, I'm already ahead 2%.
Yeah. And we can actually show you cases where most of our clients, in fact, more than 95% of our clients are actually able to refinance down to a better deal 2 years down the track.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So that's the goal anyhow, right? I get in.
Of course.
I pay this premium. It's the offset against me having the 166K, which I don't have. I can get into that property in Austral for, what was it, 28,000. But 2 years down the track, I can refinance that. I can get it revalued, right? I can refinance it. By then, I might have 10% equity in it or something. Nobody knows, but I'm just saying it's easy.
We can guess that you will definitely most likely have equity.
If history repeats itself, then sure. Yeah. And as we saw in that first graph, it's got no signs of slowing down. So, mate, let's just talk a little bit about the eligibility criteria, because this all sounds really good, obviously, but what are the hurdles?
Of course, and I know probably repeating myself, but to make it obvious, or to spell the obvious, I should say, you have to be able to make repayments on 100%, or I should say 105% of the value of the property now, right?
Yep.
You got to think outside of, this is no longer $1 million property I'm paying $800,000 against. I'm now paying more than $1 million.
Yep.
So $1,050,000 back on $1 million property.
Yep.
So your repayments are always going to be higher on $1 million property.
Sure.
All right. We're not trying to scrape the bottom of the barrel here. Like, we want to be upfront with people and know that you need to be in a position to be able to make those repayments.
Yeah.
So that being said, we usually have to see about $200,000 income.
Yeah. Okay. Can that be combined? Can that be like me and my wife, me and my partner, or
so partners, spouses, fine.
Yeah.
But as per the lender's requirements, they don't allow parents and children.
Okay. So I can't go in with my parents.
No.
Okay.
And no.
What about a mate? Can I go in with a buddy?
No mates. No.
Okay.
Super. Mitigating the risk here, speaking from a lender's point of view, if I put my lender hat on, it's just talking about trying to get that risk to a minimum.
Okay.
Right? So spouses, partners, fine.
Okay. So solo income 200 plus, or me and my partner, I'm married anyhow, but me and my wife over 200, me and my partner over 200.
Correct.
Should be good.
Yep.
Okay. What else?
So credit score
Okay.
needs to be a minimum of 700
Okay.
as a solo.
Yep.
If you're going in as two,
Yeah.
it has to be a minimum average of 750.
Okay.
Okay. So, one person has to be higher, one can be
Yeah.
below the 700 mark as long as it balances out.
Yeah. What about defaults or something like that?
Yep. No defaults.
No defaults.
No
Okay. So
defaults.
clean credit,
Clean credit.
700 and above,
Yep.
which is kind of around average to high, I guess.
Yep.
Yeah, okay. Anything else?
Uh,
I mean, apart from the deposit, I need the money to cover the stamp,
yes,
like
correct.
we showed before.
Yep.
And the closing.
Yep. So, and you do need to have that money in the bank, ready to show.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So I have to have some level of genuine savings or something that I can show to the lender that I have that money.
Yeah. So if you're looking in Sydney,
So I didn't pull it off a credit card and go and yeah. Okay.
I mean, we check all that stuff anyway.
Yeah.
I mean, the lender checks all that stuff, but
Lender checks it all.
if you're looking at Sydney as a base point, you're safe to have about $40,000 in the bank.
Okay.
You can show that.
Yeah.
You're safe.
Yeah. Okay.
Can I ask a question quickly, just before we go into the next section?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm assuming that the number for credit score, that's concrete 700, right?
Yeah.
Is the 200,000 combined, is that a guide or is that concrete, that's the number that needs to be reached?
That's
Would depend on where you're buying.
Say they were close or or is it, that's the starting point kind of?
Yeah. I mean, in Huntley, it would be a little bit less.
200,000's.
Location dependent, yeah.
Yeah, it is location dependent, of course. But if we're talking about New South Wales, and we know what the minimum price for a property is for example, Huntley's a minimum 720, then 200,000 is the least.
Yeah.
There are other circumstances where we've been able to get people into apartments, but we don't do it often.
Yeah.
We might get one apartment sale for every 20 house sales.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
So kind of pretty much.
Sorry to interrupt, I've just-
No, that's all right. Good question.
Yeah, no, that's
Appreciate
all
it. Appreciate it. Did you want to get one?
Oh, so sorry? I'm interested. That's all.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
If you're interested, that means that...
we got our camera guy over here who's
Like, audience with this kind of thing to
Yeah.
mate. It's perfect. This is all about education. You
Yeah.
know, it's about just saying, hey, there's something out there.
this is a potential
Right.
way to look at this.
Yeah.
And it is hard for people my age to buy houses these days. So
Yeah.
I don't think many people are aware of this either.
Yeah.
No, it's very new.
It's new.
It's very
It's
fresh.
very beneficial as well.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. Gareth, I wanted to thank you for your time today. I hope that's been of value to people that have tuned in. We will be sending out an email from the club, just some follow-up emails on how you can apply for this, just a short questionnaire, some eligibility criterias. Obviously, we can help you through the purchasing process. And mate, I wanted to thank you.
No worries. Thanks
a
for
lot.
having me on.
Okay. Cheers.
Thanks.